of the Laughter for All podcast. I am Comedian Nazareth, and thank you so much for joining me for this wonderful, nice Tuesday night here in Southern California. My guest is an amazing, creative, funny guy. So stay tuned, let your friends know, and come join us for this beautiful, beautiful uh, podcast. That's what I call it, beautiful podcast.
Welcome to Laughter for All. It's the podcast with Comedian Nazareth.
Well, hello, 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 and welcome back to another episode of the Laughter Fall podcast. I am Comedian Nazareth, and thank you for joining me for this wonderful, wonderful podcast. Why do I keep calling beautiful and wonderful and all that? It's been a while. I've been gone. I'll tell you where I was. Let's see. Where was I? Where was I? This Saturday, this last let me go back the beginning of the week. On Monday, I was doing something for the Orange County Rescue Mission. It's for the people who graduated from homelessness. So I did a free show for them. I brought my friend Asmao, the ratchet Christian comedian, and we had a great time doing a free show and make seeing people laugh. On Tuesday, I was in Silmar, California, doing a show for the Assemblies of God pastors in the San Fernando Valley. So that was it. On Wednesday, I did something with I'm supposed to do the junior high, but there was something that came. Yes, my daughter's, she had her play, graduation play from Cats, the theatrical performance. She did very well. On Thursday, I had my Laughter for All Christmas boat gala, where my donors come in on the boat and have a nice dinner. And I brought comedian Ron Pearson, very funny guy, and just people get updated of what the Laughter for All is doing. So that was in Newport Beach. On Saturday, I did the Crossroad Church Christmas concert, comedy concert. So I did the comedy for the Christmas concert. So that was funny. And why am I using a lot of descriptive words like beautiful and funny and great? It was very funny. It was a great show. I love Crossroads, and it was a great show. And then Sunday, the organization I helped founded in 2009 called Voice of the Refugees. We did the Christmas party for the refugees who are in the Riverside Inland Empire. And also the day before, they did something for the Orange County people. So anyway, it was a very busy week. This Thursday, I fly to Indiana. On Friday, I have a show for a large company in Arthur, Illinois, a large electrical company in Arthur, Illinois. And then on Sunday morning, going back to Kankakee, Illinois, to do Open Bible Center Church. So on Sunday morning, on that would be the 15th. So, and then I'll be home Sunday night. My daughter Carol's coming home from Nashville on Friday night. She's going to have her birthday on Saturday, and I'll miss that. Even if she's in town, I'll miss that. But anyway, she's going to be with us for Christmas. John, my son, who's touring with Zach Bryan, will be coming back probably the 20th. So, you know what? I never thought that my joy will be when my kids come back home. you know, I still have one vulture in the nest still. There's still one vulture in the nest. So I'm thankful for that. She's beautiful. She's 17. But my daughter and my son are coming back from Nashville. They were gone since August. So it's been a long time, 4 or 5 months. So anyway, it'll be nice to have everyone home for Christmas. All right, enough of that. If you want to know more about where I'm going to be, I'm doing private stuff. Next week, I will be on. I'm doing something for the Christian Credit Union in Glendora. Yes, there is something called America's Christian Credit Union. So I'm doing their Christmas breakfast on Thursday. Also on Friday, I'm doing something for the Orange County Rescue Mission staff, a Christmas party. And then on after that, yes, I have other stuff. New Year's Eve, I will be at Calvary Chapel of the Chino Valley, not Chino Hills, Chino Valley, with David Rosales. I'll do a New Year's. So if you want to show up, we'll see you there. Enough, enough. I have a friend, a new friend. We met on LinkedIn last week. His name is David Ur- Uribe. He's a designer and founder of the humor-centered branding agency Uribe Creative. Check it out. Very interesting, very creative. For the past 20 years, David has designed experiences for award-winning brands that convert ideal clients into raving fans. His creative pursuits also include stand-up, improv, and competitive Brazilian jiu-jitsu. It's hard to say it. Jiu-jitsu. It's easier to say it than to actually do it. Today, David is focused on helping stand up stand out through better branding, and you can learn more about David at daviduribe.com. So, with decades experience as a designer, marketer, and comedic performer, he helped brands like Liquid Death, Chubbies, and Geico unapologetically leverage humor to stand up and stand out. A very funny guy. Please welcome my new friend, David Uribe. Hi, David.
How's it going?
Good.
Thanks for
I'm sorry to keep you. I just kept talking, talking. I'm sorry. It's just a busy month, which is good, and people want to know. So, hey, how was Florida today?
Florida is surprisingly, well, maybe unsurprisingly warm today. It's been a little wacky, but it's warm as it should be.
You guys survived two hurricanes this year.
Man, you're telling me. We normally don't even worry about hurricanes. Like if it's not a category 4, we're like, we'll be all right. But we've been proven wrong recently. It's
Yeah.
been doing some damage around here.
It's like California. We're like when an earthquake happens, unless it's a huge one, like yeah, 4 or 5, nah, nothing. So, but that, do you have to leave your house? Do you guys have to move somewhere else when it's then they say it's coming?
Well, we normally don't, but this time we did. I actually happened to be scheduled at a conference this time around in New York. So I went with my wife to New York, and we dropped the kids off in Miami because we knew it was going to hit Miami. So we were like, that'd be all right.
Hey
We left
kids,
with the grandparents.
I I hope you like excitement. They're going to Miami. Oh, that's funny. That's funny, funny. Now, let's see. Was your mom or your dad the funny one at home?
My dad. My dad he's a yapper. He's a talker. He tells stories. That's where I get the. I'm sure I get it from.
And were you the oldest, the youngest, the middle?
I'm the youngest. I have one older brother, and it's funny. I have 2 kids now, and I'm seeing myself in my youngest daughter very much. Like she copies everything her big sister does. I used to copy everything my big brother did, and then I got to a point where I didn't want to be associated with my brother, so I kind of crafted my own personality through humor, and that was kind of my way of being my own person.
Is he a serious guy?
No, he's a lighthearted, he's a lighthearted guy. He's very relaxed, so he's not that serious. But I wanted to be goofy when he was.
Goof. Now,
Yeah.
when you were little, what did you want it to be like when you grew right now? If you imagine yourself when you were 4 or 5, like when I'm this age, I want to be what?
Oh yeah, I know that answer easily. I told I proudly told my parents and anybody who would listen, I'm going to be a doctor one day. Ooh, I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to help people. It's going to be awesome. And then I got a cut on my finger and I saw blood. And I was like, nah. I say for me, I can't do the blood stuff.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. I always wanted to be a doctor. I just never had the opportunity, and I've always like read a lot about medicine and but I just well, we're doctors of medicine of humor, and that's what we do. And we still, when you think about it, the power of humor, which is a lot about, is just you bring healing to people. I mean, for free, and
Yeah.
you don't get shot for it nowadays if you're in the health thing. I'm sorry, that was too bad. So
No, it's true.
so
It's true.
you said, okay, I'm gonna be goofy. Then you finish high school. Then what happened? What happened in your life after that?
Well, it's funny when I think about like my high school experience. Actually, I can remember early days in middle school. I would draw people. I went to like an art. I went to like a magnet program for actually for musical performance, but I also like to draw. And so I would take my sketchbook and I would draw classmates and draw teachers. And I remember I would show the teachers my drawings, and it was very caricature style. And so I just loved making them, like impressing them with like visuals and with laughter. And yeah, I was always very much a class clown. I was a good student, but I was definitely a class clown. So there was always that itch to make people laugh.
But you had this gift for designing, right? You
Mm-hmm.
like drawing and all that. And did your parents help you pursue it? Did they say, "Oh, wow, this is good. You can. This is what you should be doing."
Yeah, my parents were always very supportive of that. So I I remember being in middle school, and like I mentioned, I was in that magnet program, and I got accepted into the program for music and for art, and I had to choose one, and I chose music, and
Hmm.
I regretted it because it was 3 years where I was like basically forced to sing. And I didn't really go in there for singing. I got accepted for piano, but the students who had left the year before broke all the pianos, so
Ah.
they absolutely trashed the equipment. So they made us sing instead, and that was torturous for me for like 3 years of doing that. So after middle school, I wanted to attend another magnet program just for the arts, and so my parents helped me get a private art teacher, um, so I can build up a portfolio to get accepted to a high school for art, and I did. It was a design and architecture senior high, so it was like a proper art program that I was a part of. Yeah, it was cool.
That is awesome. So you play the piano and you can draw and you're funny. That's not fair. So to have it all in one person. Wow. So
Well, I can't play much anymore, but yeah, it was good. It was good while it
w-
lasted.
yeah. So you started. Okay. So let's. I'm trying to get to where the David Uribe, designing company came
Yeah,
about. The agency, the creative agency. So you've always been creative.
yeah.
Or when you were drawing, were you copying something, or you were just creating stuff out of
I
from?
would draw. I just draw what I'd see.
Mm,
So especially in my high school, I had to take a bus and a train to school, and it
mhm.
was early in the morning, so there would be a lot of people sleeping on the trains. So I would just draw people sleeping on the trains, and it was creepy then, but now it's like, one of the biggest artists on TikTok. That's what he does. He just draws people on trains, and I'm like, man, I was doing that before it was cool.
Oh, that's funny. Okay, so you went to did you go to college for arts or
Yep. Yep. In downtown Miami, I went to New World School of the Arts. It was another magnet program. Actually, magnet. It was a magnet high school, and it's a college as well. So I got into that college, and I studied graphic arts. So I got my degree, bachelor's degree in graphic arts, and part of that program was a lot of it was just a lot of art classes. So always really feeding that creative part of my soul.
so what helps you to be creative? What do you think? Sometimes like, what do you think? Is there something special that you go, oh, that would help me become more creative, or this is an exercise, or this is a discipline that I do to stay creative? Is there's any like that?
Yeah. I find that I'm most creative with limitations, right? Like, probably the scariest thing for an artist is a blank canvas, right? You
Mm-hmm.
got a blank canvas and you stare at it and you're like, what in the world do I do with this? What do I do? So I'm very much a person who is happy to work within very limited parameters. So I mostly do every design. I start with a sketch. I just kind of just scribble and draw and kind of get the ideas out of my head into something. I look at a lot of inspiration. I'll go on Pinterest and see what other people are doing, what other designs and things, to really inspire me. And I'm not above stealing like an artist. I love to see what other people are doing really well, and how can I adapt that towards a very specific challenge or project that I'm working on. I allow myself to be inspired.
That's not stealing, you know what I mean? Like when you see someone, like sometimes I try to avoid personally to listen to other comedians because
Mm,
some, but when you go back to the classic ones and you go, okay, oh, he talks about these topics, oh, this is something personal, oh, maybe we can do. But I'm like you know, my biggest fear is a blank page. When
yeah.
you can't write, you think, you know, for the last couple of days, I'm trying to write stuff, but it's just like it's nothing but the discipline of doing that. Now, so you started. So, what was your first job?
My first job, it started as an internship while I was in the high school in the
Uh-huh.
arts in the design and architecture senior high, Dash they call it. In the middle of that, when I was my junior year, they allowed us to get an internship, and right next door to the school was um, was a motion graphics studio called Third Eye Design Group, and so I actually applied to be an intern there. I got immediately accepted, and so I had an unpaid internship while I was in high school. The moment I graduated high school, that turned into a full time job. So I got to be a designer amongst like professional designers who were serving broadcast companies with motion graphics. So I got to do a lot of design and learn how to do animation on the job. So I really learned a lot in that time, and I was with them for about 8 years, just working with amazing designers and animators. It was very cool.
Now, what apps did you guys use? What programs did you use?
Yeah,
CAD or no? Or,
yeah. The Adobe Creative Suite is part of it. You know, Adobe After Effects, but Cinema 4D was kind of the main 3D tool that we were using. Maya was also a tool that was, you know, that's still a kind of a industry standard. But Cinema 4D was the one when I was there that we were utilizing the most, and After Effects.
After Effects. Okay. So, you worked for other people. You also worked for a church. You tried stand up. You
Hmm.
did some stand up. So, what? How did you get to start your creative agency, or the branding creative agency? How
Yeah,
did that come about?
yeah. My career has been a lot of evolving of creative pursuits, right? So, if working as a designer for that motion graphic studio, then wanting to go independent. So, I went independent as a designer for a little bit after that, and then an opportunity came to work at a multi-site church here in South Florida called Christ Fellowship, where I got hired as a video producer. So, I was recording and editing videos every week. You know, like Sunday's always coming, so you had to like produce. And in that time frame, I was able to become the creative director and build up a team. Like the first time that had a formal creative team. So it's hiring social media writers and more graphic designers, more video producers. It grew to like a team of 10, and that team is still thriving today. Like they are doing amazing stuff out there today. Um, so I did that for a while. Ended up working at a sushi chain as a brand manager, doing like marketing and graphics for them. Um,
So wait. Let me. Okay, so a company hires you, a sushi place hire your company to be their what do you call it?
a
To
brand manager. Yeah.
how do you do? What do you do exactly? Like daily
Yeah.
for them?
Yeah. For them, we were producing graphics for like any kind of like specials that they were creating because they had a couple different locations throughout South Florida. So we were equipping. It was very similar to the church in that way because the church was multi-site. So in a way, it was like an agency inside of the church providing graphics and visuals and everything for all the locations.
Uh-huh.
And so when I joined the Sushi Maki team, it was basically the same, like creating assets, creating videos and graphics and social media content to help all the locations win. So yeah, it's a lot of production, creative production.
Were you humorous in this designing and the graphics, or were you limited, or
Oh
content as
yeah,
you can be?
no, they were super open to me kind of bringing my own kind of style and voice into it. So we would use fun, puns, and like we created shirts that's like this is how we roll, and like stuff like that. And they always had a really good attitude about that, and they continue to do that. So it was one of those perfect alignments of like I want to work with this creative business that's actually serving the community with great food and fun. And their tagline was spreading goodness, which I loved being a part of that.
Good. And then after that, yeah. So was that, and then you started your agency after that, or?
Man, I wish I could say I just started my agency after that. I've had a couple different, I mean, I don't want to bore you with all the details.
No,
Like,
no, no, it's not.
yeah,
I wanna
yeah,
get how you got to the agency, the
yeah. Well,
branding.
yeah, I'll kind of give you the short version because there were some really cool things that happened in between that. Um, After the sushi opportunity, there was an opportunity to go live in England for a year and
Huh.
do missions work, like creative missions work, which is basically like church planting and using creative skills to do that. My wife is a musician. I was a designer and creative person. So we partnered with an organization called Awaken Movement in the
Okay.
UK that was doing a lot of like fresh expressions of church, like church planting. Like we were helping plant churches in pubs and coffee shops and connecting with like millennials on that level. And in the UK, church is not something that people my age are get excited about. So
Yeah.
helping to plant and start movements for young people that they would actually be interested in going to was fun. And through that, we actually created a an app to help foster more volunteer opportunities in the community. So the problem that we were coming across was there was a lot of churches that were learning and getting excited about serving the community as a first step to basically bring the gospel in that community. And so churches would be like, yes, we want to do that. We want to serve the community. But when it was time to actually get volunteers, they would say, okay, if you want to volunteer, go fill out a clipboard in the back of the room. And people would fill out the clipboard and nobody would answer the phone call when they called. So we built an app to help churches and nonprofits get volunteers to serve. And that turned into what would eventually become like a business, like a SaaS product that we brought into the US called VOMO, which is short for volunteer mobilization. So that's a lot of like more creative. That's a creative journey there. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. And within that, that's when I kind of started. Like when all that was over, is when I was like, you know what, I'm going to go on my own. I'm going to serve some clients and leverage kind of my skills as a designer and a branding professional to help small businesses. So somewhere in there, I had the passion and the opportunity to help small businesses.
So let's say, okay, I come to you. I'm a small business. I'm starting a casket company. I build caskets, and I want to use your humorous business. How do you work with that? How do you go? How do you maneuver? And the reason I mean, I brought an extreme case, caskets dying, but there's businesses where it's like you gotta maneuver your humor in a
Yeah.
way. What would you do for my company?
Well, I'll be honest. I'm not in the business of helping new guys get started. That's a tough challenge to help people start something brand new.
Oh, okay.
I tend to work with established small businesses who have been at it for a while, who already have success at some level, but they're the design is outdated. They're not really targeting their ideal clients. They're getting a lot of what I call nightmare clients over and over.
Mm.
The ones who complain a lot, the ones who want refunds, and they're really missing out on the opportunity to identify their dream clients. So that's who I ended up helping the most, because they already know what works for them, and I really help them channel what that is, and help them identify them, and
And
then
how do you do that? Let's just go one
yeah,
by one. How do you do
yeah,
that? Okay, so how do you find their ideal client? I mean,
yeah,
as an artistic designer,
yeah.
or
So I start all engagements with clients through a deep dive interview I call the brand breakthrough. It's a 2-hour interview where I ask them a bunch of questions about, like, where is their business at now? Where do they want to go? Who do they serve the best? Who are some of their favorite clients? And through that process of understanding like where they are and where they want to go and who they serve best, there you can really start to unlock the key there of like, oh, okay, if I had more of this client, let's call him John. John always shows up early, pays on time, writes good reviews. They tell people about us. Like if I could just serve the Johns of this world, then my business would thrive. Like it would double.
Yeah.
So that's what I hope small businesses do. And so through that process, the brand breakthrough, at the end of that interview, I provide them with basically a roadmap. It's basically the findings of that conversation, where I
Hmm.
recommend, hey, now that we know, where you want to go and who's the best person for you to target, here's what it would look like for me to help you execute on that. And I have basically like 3 packages that I help them, create all the assets that they would need, and depending on the level of complexity that they require to do that. And so,
So website, social media presence and stuff, and you make it humorous, right?
yeah, so my ideal client is a 6-figure solopreneur who has a sense of humor, already has a track record. And so, yeah, the ones who are going to work best with me are understand that I'm a bit of a goofball. I'm a professional, but I'm silly. I consider myself a sillypreneur.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and yeah, they are very much open to using what makes me unique into their business. And for me, it's always been leveraging my sense of humor.
I noticed from your background, like you help people like Liquid Death and Chubbies and different Geico. How was your humor or your goofiness helped? In which way you help these companies?
Well, I want to clarify. I've not helped those companies. I use those companies as examples of brands.
Oh, okay. I'm so
Yeah,
sorry. Okay.
yeah. They leverage humor really well. Like they are very well known brands. So I take some of the learnings of what they do. How they swing really, really hard in the direction of humor to win, and I help my clients kind of understand like there's power in humor. Like if you think about the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah.
It's the highest ad spend that you can make on a given day, and if you think about the majority of those commercials, they're funny,
Yeah.
right? They're either trying to make you laugh or trying to make you cry, and for the most part, they're trying to make you laugh, and they really are counting on the power and the momentum of humor to stay top of mind, the next day and really for the next decade, right? We can still remember some of our favorite Super Bowl ads
Right.
because they deployed humor. And so I think, the big companies shouldn't be the only ones who are doing that. I think the small guys, the small business owners should leverage some of that power.
Right. And you think in an environment like ours, how careful are you with the woke and the crazy and the oh, this is not funny, this is serious. How do you handle that?
I think I have a somewhat of a framework that I use
Mm.
to help identify, what helps something become humorous. So it's the word humor itself, right? So H is like honest. I think some of when you think about honesty, like the things that, and you would know this as a comedian, right? The things that are true are the things that are most funny,
Right.
right? It's like the things that you're most embarrassed about. It's the things that make you angry. Those things can be really, really funny. So just having the ability to be honest about, either your own business or your clients' pain points, that's
Mm.
a good first step, right? And then there's
Yeah.
the U, which is unexpectedness. When you think about humor, the punchline is usually something you don't see coming. That's what makes us laugh, right?
Exactly. The surprise element of it.
Yeah. So helping my clients understand like what is a way that we can leverage, the element of surprise in your business to bring, moments of surprise and delight. And then M for memorable. Think about like the senses. What are some like tangible senses that we can tap into, right? Like your favorite, like a color or something, a memory that we can tap into, like a nostalgic moment that people can latch onto. So making something memorable, and then original, right? We all
Right.
have kind of experiences that are common, but what's your fresh perspective on something, right? So if you're a tax professional, like what is the way that you uniquely, you know bring value to your customers. So what's the original spin? And then
Mm,
R is relatable. What is something that we all go through that is worth calling out? Uh,
right.
so that's kind of the framework I use to kind of help my clients leverage humor to help them stand out.
What's the U for? What was the second one? The U?
Unexpectedness, the unexpectedness.
Unexpectedness.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you have kind of a framework that you use with every company and stuff. So why are you focusing now on comedians? Like you say, you focus on comedians.
Yeah.
Why did you choose that instead of regular businesses?
Yeah, they say the riches are in the niches, and for a long time, I've really resisted the that challenge to niche down and identify just like one business vertical to serve, because I've served quite a few different verticals, right? Like nonprofits and restaurants, and I have mental health professionals, and in some ways they're unrelated, in some ways they're very related.
Mm,
And I realized recently, like, you know what? I love comedians. Like, I love what they bring to the world. And comedians, they're small business owners, like whether they realize it or not.
of
They're
course.
solopreneurs, they're sillypreneurs. And I think when I look at the comedians who have been doing it well for a long time, one thing that's obvious is usually comedians, they kind of leave their branding alone for 10, 20 years, and to the point where you look at their website and it doesn't even look like them anymore. It's like a baby version of them, like. And so I think a lot of comedians would do well to have a a very polished persona that's represented visually, that
Mm.
translates not only on their website but on their social account, on their videos, on their YouTube videos. Like, I think there's a big opportunity to really leverage a cohesive brand that helps your audience know who you are, what you stand for, your type of humor. And really, at the end of the day, I think what comedians want more of is, they want to grow their audience, they want to have
Right.
more opportunities to have gigs, to have to do specials. There's a lot of momentum that can be built, and you can do that best when you have a really well thought out, well executed brand.
Now, do you think, David, that people still go to someone's website? I mean, not necessarily a comedian, maybe a speaker, or they go to social media right away.
Yeah, I think most people come across people on their social media, because like that's where we spend a lot of our time. When
Yeah.
we're trying to escape life, we look at our phones and what am I going to come across on the algorithms, right? TikToks and IG,
Yeah.
Instagram they're kind of pushing content to you that they know you like. And so if you like comedians, you're going to come across a lot of comedians. And so when you start to come across brands and people that you like, the ones who really resonate with you, they're gonna dig a little bit further, right? They want to know, okay, who is this person? Oh, where? I wonder if they have any upcoming shows. So the natural thing that people do is they look you up. They go to your website. They try to find what kind of tickets or shows. And
Right.
I think the comedians, I think that most comedians are leaving a lot of money on the table because they do a poor job of pushing people to an email list. Like, I think if you're relying purely on the platforms that people are coming across you, those platforms they could shut down any day. TikTok is set to shut down in January. Like, what's
Mm.
going to happen to that audience that you've built there? So, the biggest opportunity comedians have is to have a really strong website and an email list where they can grow their audience, put out offers, send emails to their raving fans and say, "Hey,
So
I'm
you
going to."
still think, from your experience and your wisdom, that still a website with like a constant contact email listing, that's still a valid and viable, more important than the Instagram and the Facebook. So if someone like listening to you right now, a speaker or a business, like, oh, I better invest my money more into my website and my email list than just put the money in ads on
Oh,
Instagram and
absolutely,
Facebook.
absolutely. Let me give you an example.
Okay.
Uh, this morning, I woke up to a full inbox
Yeah.
because one of my clients that I'm helping is a very well respected comedy professional. Is the founder of The Onion, Scott
Oh,
Scott Dick.
Scott Dickers.
Yeah.
I
I'm
read
working.
his books. I talk to him, and yeah, I know who he is exactly.
Yeah, Scott Dickers. And so I've been helping him with a project that we're really excited about. And he wrote about me on his newsletter, to this big audience of comedians and comedy nerds. And I woke up and all those people, like there's a huge amount of people subscribed to my newsletter, and they downloaded a freebie that I have that I've made available on my website.
Uh-huh.
Well, those people now, I've created an automated email sequence that anybody who downloads my stuff is going to get emails from me, like high value, like emails where they're going to learn about branding. They're going to learn about how they can grow their business. And when you have a mechanism like that to serve people long term, like they don't have to go to Instagram and TikTok and anything to hear from me. Now I'm in the most intimate space that they have, which is their inbox. Like they're going to see my
Mm.
name weekly because I'm going to be adding high value content that I've already wrote a while ago.
Mhm.
So that's just kind of an opportunity that the comedians have. Now imagine if I'm like a touring comedian with a growing audience, then they would know, they would hear about me all the time. Like, hey, here's the shows I've got coming up. Here's some stories. So the inbox, having a really strong marketing campaign and strong brand and website, like that, I say is foundational for any small business owner, especially a comedian and a sillypreneur.
Wow, that's very interesting. So if there's a comedian out there listening or someone, the best thing is like to reach out to David Uribe .com, URIBA. We'll talk more about it, of course. But I have a question, and I was watching what Scott Dickers, what you talked about this morning, and so I had a question. I had to write it down, even though I don't write that. How do you stay inspired to keep your humor fresh and relevant in your work? How do you stay inspired?
Yeah. You know what? Actually, I'll brag on Scott on this because he writes daily. He writes, like, he
Yeah.
has his newsletters, no dickering around. His is And he writes to comedians and anybody who aspires to be a comedian or a comedic writer. And he really helped me adopt the practice of writing daily. So it's one of the first things I do in the morning is I set a 30-minute timer, and I just dump everything that's in my brain onto a document that I've been growing for a while now. And I use that as a starting point to kind of trigger ideas, to trigger checklists of things I need to do. So, some, and I would imagine it's very similar to you in terms of like your writing as a comedian, right? Like
Every day and
you're
30
tapping.
minutes at least, like you like exactly. I have the timer, 30 minutes. But I focus on writing something funny. I'm trying to think
Yep.
funny, but you're right. So that's how you stay fresh with that.
That's how I stay fresh. I allow myself to be inspired by things throughout the day, but in the morning, I'm offloading everything out of my head as quickly as I can and activating that what does Scott Colley calls it, the clown brain. Like
Uh,
just writing. I'm not editing. I'm not even like fixing typos, and then
right.
I come back to it later with the editor brain and say, yes, there's gold here. Oh, this is something I want to tap into. I want to make a post about that. Like that's my process.
Do you get involved in doing posts for like businesses that you help, like you do their post or send them stuff to post? Or
Yeah, I haven't focused so much on creating social content for my clients. I would consider that maybe like a long term, ongoing service. But
Mhm.
I do help my clients create that nurture sequence, that email sequence that people get when they download a freebie from their website. So I think that's um, a big high value thing to add on any website. Is you want to drive people to do one thing on your website, right? That one thing should definitely collect an email address, but you should have a secondary thing. So if I have a high ticket service, again, let's use a tax professional as an example. And maybe somebody's not ready to take action with me as their the tax professional, but if I have a free guide on like how to save $10,000 on your taxes this year with this free checklist, people are going to download that because it's
Mm.
high value. And as a way of, thanking them, basically you like, it's a good exchange. It's a free service that they're getting, but you're also getting
Getting
introduced
their
to
email.
the box. Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. So, what advice do you give someone who's starting in the design business? Like, I would like to do that. I know how to draw or something. What advice do you give them?
Man, that's a great question. I went to art school and I learned the craft of art and design, and I'm very thankful that I was able to go through that experience. It was a very great program in Miami. A lot of great, taught by professional, like working professionals in the space.
Mhm.
But one thing we learned absolutely nothing about was how to run a business. So like learning how to become a business, learning how to market yourself or sell yourself is a completely different skill set that I had to learn on the job. I had to learn when I became a professional, because when you work for yourself, you are the salesperson, you're the marketer, you're the one who delivers everything, you're the customer success agent, you're the troubleshooter, and all those are completely different skill sets. So I don't think you need to go to art school to learn the arts anymore. Like there's just so much free resources and ways that you can kind of learn that online now. Like I know a lot of talented professionals who never went to school for the craft, but I do think it's worth investing in learning how to run a business and learning
Mhm.
how to be a salesperson. Like if you could tap into learning how to be a good salesperson and a good marketer, in addition to your craft, then you are really well equipped to have a lot of success in the future.
Now, I was reading a little bit about you, and you were applying for jobs, and you were getting rejected, and then you did inventory of like, okay, this is what I know, this is what I'm good at, and this is here I'm going to go to take my. What kind of guts and how mad was your wife at you when you did that?
No, she was counting on me. She was counting on me to figure it out. And one of the one of the most, how do I say this, like humiliating processes in the world is applying for jobs and
Uh,
getting rejected over and over and over. It is soul crushing, you
Wait,
know.
wait, wait, wait. I'm sorry. I love this. I don't want to break your emotional feeling about this, but you're self-employed like me. That's daily. That rejection is daily. You apply for a job, you get rejected 4 or 5 times. You get a job, you stay with them for 10 years or 5 years. We're self-employed people. We get rejections every day when we.
Yeah.
Or do you? Do you get that?
Well, yes and no. I mean, it depends on how you approach it. Like, I would rather get that kind of rejection of a client, or like a prospect that would be a great fit as a client,
Uh,
than to have all my hopes and dreams about having like a full-time job, you know, uh, with benefits and all the things that feel like a safety net and
mhm.
feel like a secure job, and
Secure, yeah.
having those people tell me, nah, you're not good enough to work with us, like that.
Mm.
But to me, that's a world of difference,
Humiliating.
because I know that the people who are good fits for me and I'm a good fit for them, in terms of client
Mm.
to designer, that my services, there's a lot of people who would benefit from what I can do for them in their business. And so I'm kind of at the point where, like, when you spend a lot of energy just trying to get a job somewhere, it can be so soul crushing that
Mhm.
I'd rather help the people that I know I can help.
Right. So what was your wife counting on you? Did she have a job while you were looking, or she
Yeah,
was
at
just
the time, she was doing some part-time work. She had we had a baby and another one on the way, so she was just counting on me to figure it out. And I was applying for places at the time and getting rejected, and I was like, man, forget this. I'm gonna do what I know I can do, what I've done before, and start advertising my services as a designer and as a creative. And through that process is where I started figuring out, okay, I don't want to just be a freelance designer, who has like an hourly rate. I want to position myself as an agency owner who can bring very tangible outcomes to business
mm,
owners. And so I went through a lot of different coaching programs and training, and that's what kind of really helped me become a salesperson for myself, a marketer for myself. Like, I have a pretty locked in process for how I um, help business owners and help them kind of take action with me.
That's very interesting. Now, you mentioned, or we talked, you worked for a church for a while, and when did your faith start? When did you start walking with the Lord?
Man, my faith started in middle school. I was at one of the Norland Middle School. At the time, I had a girlfriend. If you could believe, like 14-year-old, 15 years old, and she was attending a Bible study that happened after school on Wednesdays, I believe.
Uh,
And so I was like, I want to go to that after school.
sure.
I want to learn about the Bible, sure, just to spend time with her. And so I would sit next to her, and the art teacher actually was the one who was teaching the Bible study. And so,
Oh,
so this,
God has a sense of humor.
oh man. So yeah, the art teacher, her name was Heather Camargo. I still consider her my spiritual mother. She introduced me to the Bible. We were reading through the book of Matthew. I remember,
Mm,
so that was my first time ever really opening a Bible and reading through it. And I would go week after week after week. And by the time I got out of middle school, like I wasn't going to go back into middle school just for a Bible study. So she actually invited me into her church. It was a house church. So I
mm.
started attending her house church. And that's when I basically knew that I trusted Jesus and that he was my savior. I didn't have like this glorious moment, where I fell on my knees.
Yeah.
Actually, not true. Uh, not true. I had on October 31st, 1999, I had another girlfriend at that time. Her church put on, like, what did they call it? Like a hell house or something. It was like a scary
Yeah.
uh, a
Like,
Halloween event where
yeah.
like they basically, tell you the dangers of what happens if you don't have Jesus in your life and you get
Yeah.
into like a drunken car crash and all that. And at the end of one of those presentations, I thought the pastor said, how many people here already trust Jesus? So I raised my hand thinking he said who already trust. But they mistook it as like I made a decision right there. So they all celebrated with me on Halloween. They're like, "Yeah, David got saved on Halloween." So I call it, yeah, Halloween 1999 was the day that I got saved. There you go.
Yeah. Well, that's what they thought. You got
Yeah, that's
saved.
what they
Yeah.
thought. Yeah.
Awesome. 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 So let's see. As any of your daughters are into music or art?
Oh yeah, both of them. Both of them. There's a lot of singing and laughing and being goofy in this house, and it's true to their parents. My wife's a professional singer, a worship leader. I'm a goofy designer, and somebody's always drawing, singing, and crying in this house. So,
Oh yeah, you have two
and
daughters and
sometimes it's
wife.
the kids too.
That's when's the last time you cried in public?
Ooh, cried in public, man. I'm, I'm I think I was sitting on the front row of my church a couple weeks ago, just kind of really moved, sitting in the front row, and I was like, had the things
Uh,
going. So that's the one I can remember the most.
where do you go to church in Orlando?
Yeah, I go to a great church called Real Life Christian Church. The website is real.life, which I love. That strong branding. Yeah, their pastor Justin Miller. He's fantastic. And my wife serves on the team there, so it's a lot of fun.
Okay, so now a comedian is listening and they're going, okay, what can you do for me? And is it feasible? Can I afford you? I've been doing it, let's say, start with someone who's just new in the comedy, someone who's been doing it for 5 to 10 years, someone who's been doing it for a long time.
Yeah.
What can you do for each category?
Yeah. It goes back to that process, right? The first step with every client is figuring out where they're at and what they want to accomplish, and what we can do to figure out how to get there. So again, I start clarity before creativity. So I think there's no harm in talking with anybody who wants to kind of figure out what they want to do next. And then from there, yeah, I'm working on spinning up a very like comedian focused brand just to talk to comedians, because up until now I've been really focused on helping 6-figure service based solopreneurs, and moving into the comedy space is something very kind of new that I'm working through.
Mm,
So I do have some kind of rough packages that I've started putting together where it's like a very foundational brand, from like a logo mark to a one-page website to like a social media banner that kind of all kind of correlates, as kind of an entry package, and then a middle package would involve more like a multi-page site and some automation when somebody downloads something like we talked about. Um, and then the third tier, like the higher tier for somebody who's way more established, already has gigs, that would probably involve merch design, some more kind of social media focused content design. So it starts to get a little bit more complex for the people who are more well established and have a little bit more needs. So yeah, I think within that ecosystem, there's plenty that would be helpful to comedians.
Perfect, perfect. And people can get a hold of you by going to, let me just write it down. It's daviduribe.com, right?
Yeah,
David.
that's me right there, Uribe. So
Okay.
daviduribe.com
Oh,
is a good
shoot.
place to find me.
What did I do? Hold on.
Ah, you broke it.
I broke it. Okay,
You broke
let's
the
see.
internet. You're the one.
daviduribe.com,
Yep.
people. And this is where, oh, look, it gave everything about your Instagram, your Facebook. Was that supposed to happen? Good.
I can't see what you did, but yeah, I
Oh,
guess.
it's in the comments.
Oh, yeah, daviduribe.com.
Okay. Yeah, David Uribe. And then it has the Facebook, the Instagram, and the YouTube.
Look at that.
Look at
Boom.
that. That's amazing. So, uh, well, I pray, I want to encourage people who actually are comedians or people who are entrepreneurs still. If you want to seek wisdom from David and go, learn more about his agency and what he does, maybe there's a way he can help you. That would be great. Also, he's a Christian brother, so it will be sometimes a lot easier to work with some people if they understand where you come from and how you conduct your business or your ministry or your comedy business. So I hope this helps you people. And if you know of any comedian or anybody who needs help in that way, in creative way, with a humor-centered designer, then check davideurope.com and follow him or share this podcast with them. Awesome. Well, hang on in there, David, 1 second. I'll be right back. And
Sure.
thank you so much for your time and taking the time of your daughters and your wife to be with us. So thank you so much, David.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Hang on in. So thank you guys for watching. I hope that was helpful. It was helpful to me. I learned a lot, and just talking about the humor and from being honest and being unexpected and memorable and being original and being the R was for shoot real, being real. I think that's what he said. But anyway, so go back to Europe, daviduribe.com, and get more information about that. Thank you guys for watching. I want to encourage you, if you're in Illinois on Sunday, I'm going to be in Kankakee. I still have Saturday night. If there's a pastor or a ministry or organization, go, hey, we can have Nazareth come and do comedy, or there's a comedy club that had a canceled headliner. Let me know this Saturday. I'm available in Illinois. Friday night, I'm doing a big company in Arthur, Illinois. On Sunday morning, I'm going to be in Kankakee. So anywhere in between that will help. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Let your friends know, and you have a great night. God bless you. Good night.